My story began on a rainy evening in October when I was house-sitting for my aunt at her old Victorian home on Willow Lane. The house, with its creaking floors and drafty hallways, always felt heavy with secrets. My aunt had warned me that strange things sometimes happened there, but I brushed it off as family folklore. The first night was uneventful, just me, a good book, and the sound of rain tapping against the windows. But as I settled into bed, I heard something, a soft whispering, like voices carried by the wind. I told myself it was just the sound of the storm. The next evening, while making dinner, I felt a cold draft rush past me. I turned to see the kitchen door slowly swinging open, even though I was certain I had shut it. I closed it, shaking off the feeling, but the unease was creeping in. That night, I woke up at 3 a.m. to a loud thud. My heart raced as I listened intently. It came from the attic. I grabbed my phone for light and made my way up the stairs, each creak of the old wood sending chills down my spine. The attic door was slightly ajar, and as I pushed it open, the air turned icy. Inside, I saw nothing but boxes covered in dust and cobwebs. I was about to turn back when I noticed a small mirror leaning against the wall. It looked out of place, oddly clean compared to the rest of the attic. As I approached it, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. I peered into the mirror and froze. Instead of my reflection, I saw a woman, pale with hollow eyes, standing behind me. I whipped around, but there was no one there. I turned back to the mirror, and the woman was now closer, her lips moving as if she were trying to say something. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled back, crashing into a stack of boxes. The next day, I called my aunt to tell her about the strange occurrences. She listened quietly, and when I finished, she said, "You saw her, didn't you? The woman in the mirror is a part of this house's past. She's looking for something or someone." That night, I decided to confront whatever haunted the house. I set up a camera in the attic, determined to catch evidence of the ghost. As I waited, I felt the temperature drop again, the air thick with an unseen presence. Suddenly, the camera recorded a shadow flitting across the attic, and a chilling whisper echoed, "Help me!" Heart pounding, I called out, "What do you want?" The whisper returned, louder this time, "Find me." Sleep eluded me that night, and the next day I searched through my aunt's old boxes. I found letters, photographs, and newspaper clippings about a young woman named Clara who had lived in the house decades ago. She had gone missing, and her body was never found. Each letter pointed to a tragic story of love and loss, a heartbreaking mystery. That night, I went back to the attic, holding Clara's last letter, which spoke of a hidden treasure she wanted to leave for her beloved. "If you find it," the letter said, "you will free me." As I read it aloud, I heard a soft sobbing behind me. The air thickened and Clara appeared in the mirror, clearer this time. "You can help me," she whispered, her voice echoing with desperation. I felt compelled to dig deeper, but I was terrified. I searched the house, following clues in the letters, until I stumbled upon a loose floorboard in the attic. I pried it open and found a small, ornate box. Inside lay a locket with a picture of Clara and a note that read, "To my love, may you find peace." Suddenly, the attic was filled with a deafening roar, and Clara's spirit rushed towards me, her face twisted in anguish. "You found it! You found it!" she screamed, but there was no relief in her eyes, only desperation. With a final chilling wail, the mirror shattered and the cold air vanished. I staggered back, heart racing, the feeling of dread overwhelming me. I realized then that I hadn't freed Clara. I had awakened something else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice, now a whispering plea echoing through the house, growing louder, more frantic. "Help me! Help me!" When dawn finally broke, I packed my bags and fled, leaving my aunt a note explaining everything. I never returned to Willow Lane. Months later, I learned that my aunt decided to sell the house. As I drove past, I saw a "for sale" sign. The house looked different. The windows were dark, and an unnatural stillness surrounded it. I felt the weight of eyes watching me, felt Clara's presence lingering. Now, I can't shake the feeling that she's still there, still searching for something she may never find. And sometimes, in the quiet of my own home, I hear whispers in the walls, begging for help. As I stood frozen, staring into the shattered mirror, a heavy silence enveloped the attic. My breath came in shallow gasps, and the temperature dropped even further. I could see my breath fogging in the air, and it felt as if the very walls were closing in around me. Clara's wail echoed in my mind, a haunting melody that gripped my heart with fear. Suddenly, the whispering intensified, a cacophony of desperate voices overlapping, pleading for help. "You need to leave," I whispered to myself, but my feet felt glued to the floor. The shadows in the attic seemed to stretch and contort, taking on ominous shapes that lurked just beyond my vision. I could almost feel the weight of Clara's sorrow pressing against me, urging me to listen. With a surge of adrenaline, I grabbed the locket from the box and clutched it tightly in my hand. I called out into the darkness, "Clara, if you can hear me, I'm trying to help you." The room fell eerily silent. For a brief moment, it felt like time had stopped, and I held my breath, waiting for a response. Then, with a sudden rush, the atmosphere shifted. A cold gust of wind swept through the attic, extinguishing the dim light from my phone. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to find my way back to the staircase. But before I could reach the door, I heard it, a soft, mournful sobbing that echoed from the corner of the room. I turned slowly, heart pounding, and saw her. Clara stood there, her ethereal form illuminated by a faint, otherworldly glow. Tears streamed down her pale cheeks, and her eyes, once hollow, were filled with a mix of sorrow and hope. "Help me," she whispered, her voice breaking my heart. "Find the truth and set me free." The anguish in her voice pulled at my soul. I realized this wasn't just about a missing treasure. It was about her lost love and the pain that bound her to this house. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I had to uncover the truth of Clara's story, not just for her, but for the peace of the restless spirits trapped within these walls. Determined, I retraced my steps, racing down the attic stairs and back into the living room. I rifled through the old letters again, looking for clues that might lead me to the answers Clara needed. As I read, the pieces started to fall into place. A long-lost diary, a name mentioned in passing, Henry, her beloved, who had vanished around the same time Clara went missing. I felt an urge to go back to the attic, this time with purpose. I had to find Henry. He might hold the key to releasing Clara. I hurried back upstairs, the atmosphere heavy with anticipation. With every letter I pieced together, a picture emerged of a love affair that ended in tragedy. Clara had been waiting for Henry, but he never returned. Just as I reached the attic door, I noticed an old trunk in the corner that I had missed earlier. It was dusty and faded, but it felt significant. I pulled it open, heart racing, revealing a collection of personal items, a faded photograph of Clara and Henry together, laughing with love in their eyes. Next to it was a small notebook, worn at the edges, filled with notes and drawings of their life together. As I flipped through the pages, I found a final entry that sent chills down my spine. It detailed a secret meeting in the woods, a promise of forever. But the last line was ominous. "If anything happens to me, tell Clara I love her." Suddenly, the temperature in the attic plummeted, and the whispering rose to a fever pitch. Clara's spirit flickered before me, her expression shifting from hope to despair. I realized then that she needed to hear those words from me, that she needed to know Henry still loved her. With the notebook in hand, I closed my eyes and reached out to Clara, channeling every ounce of my energy into the words. "Clara, Henry loves you. He never forgot you. He wants you to find peace." In that moment, the room trembled and the shadows danced wildly around us. Clara's form began to shimmer, her eyes lighting up with recognition and relief. "Henry," she whispered, and the chaos around me subsided into a soft glow. I felt the weight lift from my chest as her spirit slowly began to fade, her expression one of profound gratitude. "Thank you," she breathed, her voice like a soft breeze. And just like that, she was gone. The air in the attic became still, and a sense of calm washed over me. I looked around, and the oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by a warm glow that felt welcoming. I had freed Clara, but in the process, I had also freed myself from the heavy burden of fear that had haunted me since my arrival. As I left the attic, I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I had confronted the darkness, uncovered the truth, and helped a lost soul find her way home. But as I stepped into the hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that Clara wasn't the only spirit lingering in the house. The walls whispered secrets, and shadows danced just out of sight, reminding me that some stories are far from over. As I stood in the now peaceful attic, my heart still racing, I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper lurked within the walls of the house. I took a moment to collect myself, reminding myself of Clara's departure, how her spirit had found solace at last. But the warmth of the attic was overshadowed by an unsettling chill that crept back in, whispering that my journey wasn't over yet. I cautiously descended the stairs, each creak of the old wood echoing in the silence. My instincts told me to leave, but curiosity nagged at me. What other secrets did this house hold? I remembered the strange noises I had heard in the basement and the feeling of being watched from the shadows. It was almost as if the house itself was alive, a vessel for all the spirits that had once walked its halls. As I reached the main floor, I noticed the front door was ajar. An instinctual dread gripped me, but I felt compelled to check it out. I stepped outside, the cool night air hitting my face, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere inside. I walked toward the edge of the property, drawn to the trees at the back of the yard where Clara's love story had unfolded. But as I approached, the moonlight flickered ominously through the branches, casting strange shadows that seemed to writhe. I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck, and suddenly, the air grew dense, as if charged with electricity. I turned back toward the house, and for a split second, I saw a figure standing in the window, the unmistakable outline of a woman. My heart raced as I squinted to see clearer, but the figure vanished just as quickly as it appeared. "Clara?" I whispered, confusion flooding my mind. Could it be her? I felt the pull of the house again, stronger now. I needed answers. I hurried back inside, the door slamming shut behind me as if urging me onward. The air inside was thick with anticipation, and a flickering light caught my eye from the direction of the living room. There, the old chandelier swayed gently, casting erratic shadows on the walls. I stepped closer, and that's when I heard it. A faint sound, like a whispering voice that seemed to come from the fireplace. "Help us! Help us!" I approached cautiously, kneeling by the hearth. The voice was clearer now, almost melodic, but filled with an undertone of anguish. I grabbed a flashlight and shone it into the fireplace, hoping to find the source. To my shock, the soot-stained bricks had words scrawled across them, barely visible but unmistakable. "They are trapped." Fear twisted my stomach. Who were they? I glanced around the living room, memories of Clara swirling in my mind. Her sadness, her longing. What if there were others? Others who had been waiting for release, just like her. Suddenly, the temperature dropped again, and the whispers grew louder, merging into a panicked chorus. "Help us! Find us!" I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I realized I had to confront whatever darkness lingered in this house. I raced to the basement door, my heart pounding. As I descended the stairs, the air turned frigid, and I could feel a heavy presence weighing down on me. I flicked on my flashlight, illuminating the stone walls that felt like they were closing in. The whispers intensified, a haunting echo of despair. The basement was a labyrinth of old furniture and forgotten relics. I moved through the clutter, driven by an instinctual urge to discover the truth. Suddenly, a shadow flitted past my peripheral vision. I whipped around, but there was nothing there, only the oppressive darkness and the relentless whispers. Then, in the far corner, I spotted a flicker of light. I edged closer, and what I found sent chills down my spine. An old, dusty mirror, its surface covered in a thick layer of grime. The light pulsed from within, and I could see the faint outlines of faces trapped behind the glass. Their eyes were wide with terror, mouths moving silently, begging for help. "No," I gasped, backing away. The truth slammed into me like a wave. These were the spirits of those who had lived in this house before, trapped in this mirror as punishment for something terrible that had happened long ago. I remembered the diary, the notes about Clara and Henry's tragic love story. There had to be a connection. With newfound determination, I approached the mirror, feeling its cold surface against my fingertips. I whispered, "I can help you." The whispers intensified, the voices overlapping into a desperate plea. "Set us free. Find the truth." I closed my eyes, summoning every ounce of courage. "What do you need from me?" I asked, my voice steady despite the rising fear. The air thickened, and I could feel a shift as if the spirits were surrounding me, guiding me. Images flashed before me, fragments of moments that led to their imprisonment. Betrayals, unfulfilled promises, and a deep-rooted fear that had created a cycle of sorrow. I opened my eyes, the realization dawning on me. I needed to expose the truth of their story. With renewed vigor, I searched the basement for anything that might help. I rummaged through boxes, old photographs, and papers, and then I stumbled upon a hidden compartment in the wall. Inside, I found a collection of letters, stained and yellowed with age. They detailed a dark secret, an accident that had led to the loss of lives and the blame placed upon innocent souls. This was it. I needed to share their story, to make sure they were remembered. As I held the letters in my hands, I felt the spirits around me draw closer, their energy swirling in the air like a storm. I raised my voice, trembling but determined. "I will tell your story. You will not be forgotten." The air pulsed with power, and the whispers rose to a crescendo, swirling around me like a whirlwind. The mirror began to shake, and the faces within twisted with emotions: hope, fear, desperation. "Thank you!" they chorused, their voices melding into one. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the mirror, enveloping me completely. I felt the weight of the house shift, the energy of the spirits lifting as they broke free from their prison. The mirror shattered, sending shards flying through the air, each one releasing a soul into the night. As the last remnants of the darkness faded, a profound stillness settled over the house. I stood in the basement, gasping for breath, my heart racing. I had done it. I had freed them. When I finally emerged into the light of dawn, the house felt different, lighter, as if a heavy shroud had been lifted. I looked back one last time, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. Clara, Henry, and all the lost souls were finally at peace. With my heart full of hope, I walked away from Willow Lane, knowing I would carry their story with me forever.